This year, Britain is uniting to celebrate the Queen's Platinum Jubilee.
It's an amazing achievement. We're never ever going to see a monarch reign for 70 years again.
During her remarkable 7 decades on the throne, Queen Elizabeth II has reigned over monumental social and political change. But one constant throughout her long, illustrious life has been her greatest of all passions: horses.
Some wags have even suggested that when she was born, she was sitting on a rocking horse. That's how much horses mean to her.
I think really they're part of her DNA. Any time she ran horses, actually, it's when I think we see her probably at her most natural.
Our monarch has been a phenomenally successful racehorse owner for over 60 years.
And it's going to be a royal victory, I think, on the near side, John Fowling.
That's her great love, to breed a horse that goes on to win.
And if it's first past the post, then she's really leaping for joy.
Her majestic ceremonial steeds take centre stage at momentous state occasions watched by millions.
It makes a difference that they're the Queen's horses. She's very observant. If there's something wrong, she's very likely to see it.
And even at home, Her Majesty is rarely far from her beloved purebred ponies.
Any person who dedicated their lives as she has for the public good needs to relax.
When she is there, being a groom, she's not Elizabeth the monarch, she's not Elizabeth opening Parliament. It's a space where she can be Elizabeth the rider.
All the Queen's horses have captured her heart. To get to know her love for horses is to truly understand the Queen. Her Majesty has a great love and enormous admiration for her working horses, who dedicate their lives to serving the sovereign. As such, many of them enjoy the magnificence and grandeur of life at the Royal Mews, which is home to around 30 of the Queen's loyal steeds and known as the finest working stables in existence.
The Royal Mews is the stables at Buckingham Palace, and if you can imagine having dinner at Buckingham Palace, it would be like the best dinner on gold-plated plates and glasses, best dinner you've ever had. If you're a horse, you want to live at the Mews at Buckingham Palace. They don't have gold-plated stables, but they practically have everything else.
The Mews's meticulously trained harness horses pull the Queen's opulent carriages at state events, which take place up to 50 times a year. But our monarch makes sure her hard-working horses are well rewarded.
You can see from the horses that they're beautifully cared for. They must be very happy to be there, and they're clearly much loved and much looked after.
The Queen's very involved in taking care of her horses. They've got a lot of space, they get a lot of exercise, they have a huge amount of personnel who work there to look after the horses. The horses are more important than the people.
And when it's time for them to retire from service, Her Majesty may well see to it that her elderly equines put their hooves up here at the Horse Trust in Buckinghamshire.
I can't tell you what it means to me to take a service horse that's been primped and preened all its life and let it turn into a dirty, woolly mammoth. It's a real joy.
Founded in 1886, the Horse Trust is the oldest equine charity in the world and can care for over 100 horsey civil servants, some of whom may have been sent by the sovereign herself.
Hello, handsome man. So the Queen does take an active interest, and she will raise any concerns she has about any of the horses with the team at the Mews. She's a magnificent horsewoman.
One of the Queen's favourite horses relishing retirement here is Daniel, an elegant Windsor Grey and former Met police horse who served as a harness horse at the Royal Mews for 14 years.
Daniel was a very good-looking horse, and he was a bit of a poster boy for the Royal Mews. I mean, he's a very, very good-looking horse, so you can see why they were very, very proud of him. He was a favourite of the Queen's.
Daniel is a very important horse to us. In 2019, he ruptured his suspensory ligament in one of his hind limbs. Daniel was referred to the Royal Veterinary College and he received some pretty amazing treatment. He had stem cells injected into the ligament and he also was put in a cast for about 10 to 12 weeks. Treatment like that takes a lot of time and a lot of resources. Because Daniel's given so much to the country throughout his working career, it's really important for us, and not just for Daniel, for all the horses here, that they get absolutely every opportunity given to them to be allowed to make a full recovery.
Daniel drew the carriage of the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge at their wedding in 2011. Alongside his friend and stablemate, Storm, an Irish Draft. The pair worked hard together at many state occasions, and Her Majesty was so grateful the horses were immortalised as a statue in Windsor to mark her Diamond Jubilee. When Daniel retired, the pair were separated, but Storm continued to work, taking front and centre stage at Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's wedding in 2018. Today, it's Storm's turn to begin his new life of leisure at the Horse Trust, accompanied by none other than the Queen's head coachman, Matthew Powers.
The Queen, she's very familiar with, obviously, the Horse Trust, and we had to have sanction to say that we wanted to retire them. And she wanted to know why we were retiring them, and of course where they were going, and she obviously gives the green light or not. So yeah, she's very heavily involved with everything.
Matthew's introducing Storm to the Trust's Equine Care Director, Mark Avison.
This horse, Storm, has been our foundation Windsor Grey, really. He's been used for every role in the last 10 years. Ascot, state visits, and he actually used to marry up with Daniel, who you've got here at the moment. Yes. Well, I'd saved him this year to do quite a lot of potential jobs that are coming up, obviously, for the Jubilee. It was just going to be the walking processions for that, and he was going to be that rock in the front. And that's what I'm missing with him not being in the team.
Yeah, very key position in your team, and he'll be able to watch it this year.
Yes. Watch all his family and his friends doing it, yeah. It's nice to get Storm to have a nice retirement, really. He's been quite a good loyal servant. He completely deserves to be here.
The horses get treated really well. The Queen, she wants to give them the best possible life after they've ended their working life, roam free, have as natural a life as possible. And I think this says a lot about how much she respects and values the work that they've done.
After years of serving Queen and country together, Storm and Daniel are finally set to reunite and enjoy the rest of their lives in the Buckinghamshire countryside.
Obviously, they look very relaxed here. In London, it's the hustle and bustle of a lot of heavy traffic, a lot of tourists. As here, they're completely chilled, no one bothers them all the time. They can actually just relax and be horses. Perfect retirement.
Horses are at the centre of everything the Queen does, from her public appointments to her private pursuits. In her leisure time, the Queen has always used horses as a way to switch off.
It's an important part of royal life and an important part of royal pleasure that you can ride your horses.
I think for the Queen, riding has been an incredibly important way for her to relax and to find some solace away from her incredibly busy life.
Any person who dedicated their lives as she has for the public good needs to relax. The way the Queen is able to relax is riding with her horses.
One of the reasons she loves riding is horses are no respecter of rank, ego, reputation or wealth. If a horse is in a bad mood, you will know about it.
And for the Queen, riding is a passion that spanned a lifetime. Her Majesty has been seen on horseback from the age of 4 to 94.
In the height of the pandemic, the one thing that gave her solace was she'd slip out of Windsor Castle, headscarf on, tweed jacket, joggers. She'd drive down to the stables where her head groom, Terry Pendry, would have 2 fell ponies ready for her, and she would go riding during lockdown. I actually think it's was incredibly good for her physical and her mental health.
The Queen has adored fell ponies for many years. One of her favourites is Farleton Fern, and for her 96th birthday, Her Majesty released an official image in the grounds of Windsor Castle with another 2 of her much-loved fells, Bybeck Katie and Bybeck Nightingale. The Queen's affection is such that for the past 40 years, she has been patron of the Fell Pony Society, whose aim is to keep pure the bloodlines of the rare breed.
Come on, girls! Come on! Come on!
Society member Penny Randall breeds the ponies in their native Cumbria.
Oh, a fell pony breeder never discloses how many ponies they've got. That's a big secret. We do just run a small semi-feral herd on the fell, and we're now the 4th generation of our family to do so. They've actually got about 4,000 hectares that they could wander off to, but they don't. Over the generations, they know their own area and the surrounding fell. So they've got to be hardy, they've got to be robust, they've got to be able to power up the hills. They need good substance and bone to enable them to do that, which is what's created the pony that there is today. The Queen's interest and genuine love of the fell pony has been absolutely incredible for the fell pony, because people are much more aware of the breed and the versatility.
And it's this versatility, along with its temperament, that makes the fell pony the perfect choice for Her Majesty.
The fell pony has been a brilliant pony for the Queen to ride well into her 90s. For a start, you're nearer the ground, but also they're sensible, they're sturdy.
They're big ponies, but they are intelligent, they're reliable, they're sure-footed, they've got good temperaments. So the types of horses that she chooses to ride now are probably the best for her age.
The Society is absolutely delighted to have the patronage of Her Majesty the Queen. She's a great ambassador for the breed. It just shows what a good judge of ponies she is, that she's chosen to have fell ponies in her life.
In 2016, the Fell Pony Society gave the Queen a very special gift. They attempted to take 90 ponies to Windsor to celebrate the Queen's 90th birthday, but it didn't quite go according to plan.
When the Queen found out that more people had applied to come than actually they had been given spaces for, she said, no, anyone who wants to come must be able to come. So I think in the end there were something like 128, 130 ponies and their riders who came. And the Queen, I think it was her best birthday present ever.
The Queen travelled in a carriage pulled by fell ponies. Her own pony, at the time her own riding pony, Carlton Mima Emma, she led the procession. I think the Queen was absolutely delighted to see all the ponies. It was a really great experience, and I hope we can do the same for her 100th birthday.
The Queen has happily shared her love of equestrian sports with the rest of the royal family. But as a mother and a grandmother, it hasn't always been easy for Her Majesty to watch.
It was a major fall, major break.
I think the Queen, as any mother, would always be very nervous about watching her children play something like polo. It is the sport of kings, but it also can be quite rough and ready and dangerous.
For the Queen, equestrianism isn't just a solo pursuit. She would often enjoy riding with her husband, the late Prince Philip.
Riding has been the kind of common thread really throughout the royal family, and Prince Philip loved horses as much as the Queen. I think that was a real passion that really brought them together. They loved riding together.
The Duke of Edinburgh once said that the horse is a great leveller, and this is so true. A horse doesn't know who you are, and success with a horse is just as hard fought for anybody.
And the success that really united the Queen with her husband and the rest of her family is polo.
I think polo is rather a royal tradition.
Number 4 is Royal Highness the Duke of Cambridge.
It is known as the sport of kings.
There we are, Prince Harry.
The Queen enjoys watching polo. She finds it extremely entertaining.
Polo is said to be the oldest equine sport in the world. Its popularity in the UK took off in the 1950s, largely thanks to Prince Philip, who fell in love with the sport while serving in Malta with the Royal Navy.
His uncle was commander of the cruiser squadron in Malta, and it was actually his uncle, Lord Louis Mountbatten, who introduced Prince Philip to polo. And he took to it. He loved it. When Prince Philip had to come back to England, because he was now sort of full-time consort to the Queen, he was looking for something to do.
He'd been a man who spent his entire life dedicated to being a naval man, to going to war, and then when there was peace, he did feel a bit at sea.
Having played polo in Malta, he decided that, well, why don't we play polo in England?
Prince Philip needed somewhere the size of about 5 football fields to play, and he found the perfect setting within the 4,800 acres of a royal park.
He thought use a section of Windsor Great Park. It was all this land and nothing was being done with it.
So in January 1955, the Household Brigade Polo Club was opened. It was here Prince Philip captained his very own team.
He formed the Windsor Park polo team, and they went on to win loads of cups from really prestigious tournaments.
Throughout the 50s and 60s, they accumulated a collection of the sport's most celebrated cups.
He played a lot at Windsor, and because of that, there is a very large polo community that has sprung up, and that essentially is because of Prince Philip. It's put so much time and support into the sport.
In 1969, the Household Brigade Polo Club became Guards Polo Club and is now the biggest in Europe, with around 1,000 non-playing members and 160 playing members.
The atmosphere can be rather electric. Normally in polo we play 6 chukkers. Each chukker is 7 minutes each. As we get to the 5th and the 6th chukker, of course, it becomes incredibly exciting as to who may be winning.
The Queen regularly attends matches at the club, not on official business, but in a private capacity.
She comes purely and simply because that's what she enjoys doing, and in fact has done that for many, many years. She's supported the club. She's come to see her husband playing. She's come to see her grandchildren playing, as well as her sons playing. So I think she really enjoys coming to club, and I should think that it holds some very, very happy memories for her. This is the main room in the clubhouse, where around the walls the various tournaments that the club has played since the beginning of its history. This particular one over here, the Duke of Wellington tournament, started off as a Godley Memorial tournament. As you can see, it goes back to 1957 and has all the winners each year. This is our trophy cabinet, which at the moment is slightly devoid of trophies because all the important trophies go out to the winners of each tournament. One in front of me is the InterVarsity Cup. Interesting photograph over here at the bottom of Her Majesty the Queen presenting a trophy to Prince Charles, her son.
Guards is home to some of the biggest tournaments in polo, including the Cartier Queen's Cup, which takes place over 3 weeks in late May and early June and features the world's top players and their ponies.
The Jubilee will fall at the time that we're actually playing the Queen's Cup. The Queen donated this cup to the Guards Polo Club and played for every year, so it'd be a great way to celebrate her Jubilee.
Prince Philip was president of Guards Polo Club for 66 years until his passing in 2021.
Prince Philip would attend the club in a formal capacity, normally twice a season, to meet and review what had gone at the club. But Prince Philip wouldn't be here just on the important days. He would quite often just very surreptitiously just drive in. He'd sometimes just breeze into the office and go and see the guys working in the office and ask what's going on. And he was very much plugged into polo. And as we walk down towards the royal box, this area here, As you can see, it's a north grandstand. So this is the entrance to the very prestigious royal box. Her Majesty the Queen would normally enter through this door. The rest of the guests would remain separately, and she would continue towards the steps at the far end to go to the upper tier of the royal box. This is a collage of photographs that have been collected over the years, which just show various members of the royal family, important patrons. We then go through to the main room in the royal box. Her Majesty and the rest of the guests would be out here on the terrace, looking towards the game and looking at our number one ground, which is called the Queen's Ground.
When tournaments at Guards clash with other sporting appointments, the Queen has been known to send senior royals in her place. In 2021, Prince William went to Wembley and the Duchess of Cambridge to Wimbledon, while the Queen, it seems, reserved the polo for herself.
I think her interest in polo must be very much around the amazing skill, horsemanship, and unfortunately the danger that comes with it. I don't think any other equine sport is quite as challenging, and I think that's perhaps why she appreciates it.
The Queen has long been a breeder of polo ponies, and she's passed her love of the sport and some of her ponies down to her son, Prince Charles.
I do remember playing with Prince Charles only on one occasion, and in fact I was on Prince Charles's team. And I'll never forget, because he turned around to me halfway through the game and said, "Did you notice that right off that the chap just went into me? That really should have been allowed." And I thought, well, sir, definitely not as far as you're concerned.
Charles was just 15 when he made his polo-playing debut on a team captained by Prince Philip. He continued to play well into adulthood.
He needed something energetic to let off steam. You can be angry and you get on a horse and you start chasing a ball and you can whack it with a mallet and let off steam that way.
Throughout his life, polo has been a great escape for Prince Charles. Polo was one of the few places where he felt he could be ordinary and where he felt he could be free.
To Her Majesty's delight, Prince Charles went on to become a top polo player. But polo is a very high-risk sport. Traditional wooden balls are hit at speeds of up to 96 miles per hour, and falls at high speed mean injuries are common. Charles knows this only too well.
Then it happened. Did he fall or was he pushed?
Prince Charles just exiting quietly.
If you are galloping a pony at 40 miles an hour and turning on a sixpence and screeching to a halt and screeching around the bend, you are going to fall off and you are going to get kicked and you are going to break things. It's just the nature of the sport.
Watching Charles, her son and heir, playing such a dangerous game wasn't easy for the monarch.
I think the Queen, as any mother, would always be very nervous about watching her children play something like polo. It is the sport of kings, but it also can be quite rough and ready and dangerous.
The Queen must have felt her anxieties watching her eldest son on the polo field, which is a fast and furious sport. Just because you're a member of the royal family doesn't mean you're not going to fall off. And then, you know, boy, are the cameras going to like it.
The worst injury he had was 1990. He went off to play polo at Cirencester. And the next thing, I had a phone call to say he'd come off his pony. He's broken his arm.
Prince Charles is still in some pain, but is out of bed, sitting in a chair in his pyjamas.
It was a major fall, major break, and the arm very swollen. The buzz was going around that he'd be disabled, he'd never be able to play polo again, he wouldn't be able to salute or anything like that.
It was a nerve-wracking time for the Queen.
Fortunately, Charles was okay, but I think whenever she watched her children compete, it always slightly heart-in-mouth territory.
In 2015, 3 days after his 67th birthday, Clarence House released a statement announcing Charles's retirement from polo. The Queen is likely to have been relieved.
It was a wise decision to actually give up. And there are some who say he should have given up earlier, but your body tells you when it's time.
It comes as no surprise that the Queen's grandsons also grew up surrounded and captivated by horses and ponies.
They had Shetland ponies called Smokey and Trigger, and Harry was put on when he was really very small. He got put on the horse and he cried when he got taken off. Harry really loved horses, and I really think they appeal to Harry's desire for freedom and speed, and sometimes to be a little bit reckless.
Still going to be going forward. Oh, come on!
Just like the Queen, the princes soon found their passion for polo.
They would go to Guards Polo Club or wherever their dad was playing, and they would grab hold of a spare mallet and play something akin to croquet. And eventually they took to riding horses.
Prince William comes forward. Can he get control? He's over on the far side. Can he go all the way? Prince William gets the big kiddies into the opposition half.
Prince Harry in particular, he did think he wanted to be a professional polo player, but Prince Charles said to him that princes can't really do that kind of thing. They have to do charity work and representation.
So William and Harry came up with an idea. Combine charity work with their favourite sport.
William and Harry have taken the decision to play polo just for very special causes. They tend to play in a series of polo matches that are specifically in aid of charities they support.
Over the years, the Queen's grandsons have raised the princely sum of £11 million for charity. Although Prince Harry took a step back from royal duties in 2020, he has continued his charitable polo pursuits. And the Queen's love of the sport continues to be passed down through generations of royals.
When President Obama was thinking about what to gift Prince George as a first birthday present, I think it's significant he chose a rocking horse and also a polo mallet that was made from a tree from the White House lawn. And I think that tells you a lot about how the British royal family's love of horses and everything equestrian is well known.
The Queen is very aware that the royal family isn't just known for their love of equestrianism, but also for writing the rule book on it.
She has watched Prince Philip competing in the carriage driving, which he was very instrumental in setting up.
Prince Philip said the best bit was when it was over and you're all in one piece.
The Queen doesn't just enjoy riding and racing horses. She is very well known for breeding a number of different types, including polo ponies and native breeds.
She has bred Shetlands for her children and grandchildren to ride. She's bred racing horses. She's bred fell ponies. I think she loves it.
Every year, Her Majesty takes many of her breeds here to one of the world's most prestigious horse shows.
The Royal Windsor Horse Show has always been a really big part of the Queen's life. The administrative hub is actually within the grounds of Windsor Castle, and I believe that she is often very hands-on in making decisions.
The Queen hosts the Royal Windsor Horse Show and takes great pride in so doing. This is an occasion that every year she's thoroughly enjoyed because, of course, it is linked with her particular passion.
The Royal Windsor Horse Show began in 1943 and takes place over 5 days every May or June. It hosts international competitions in disciplines such as show jumping and carriage driving, and over 130 showing classes. Her Majesty has hardly missed a show in the event's 80-year history.
It's been a big part of family life for her since the 1940s. She competed in the driving trials there with her sister Princess Margaret, and she goes every year, presents prizes, and I think it's a really big date in the calendar for her.
Due to Her Majesty's attendance, the show's organisers ensure that security at the event is top-notch.
According to a magazine report, the Queen was told one year by a security guard, "Sorry, love, you need a sticker to get in there." she apparently replied as straight-faced as she could, "I think if you check, I will be allowed in." Her straight face must have been a picture to watch.
One of the Queen's most successful homebred horses and a familiar face at the Royal Windsor Horse Show was a thoroughbred cross she named Doublet.
He was a chestnut and bred on polo pony lines, and he was a lovely little horse.
Despite Her Majesty intending to use him for polo, Doublet found his true calling in the equestrian sport of eventing, which combines dressage, show jumping and cross-country riding. The Queen gifted Doublet to her daughter Anne, the Princess Royal.
Princess Anne, like Prince Charles, is extremely horsey. So she was a phenomenal rider in her era.
The Princess Royal made eventing her sport of choice, and she was hugely successful.
In 1971, Anne rode Doublet at the European Eventing Championships, and the pair won the gold medal.
The Queen must have had a huge thrill watching her daughter winning the European Championships.
But just like her brother Prince Charles, Anne's falls got almost as much attention as her achievements. One particularly memorable mishap took place in 1976 at the Portman Hunt trials, when Anne was thrown from her horse.
I didn't actually see what happened. What it looked like, so the horse hit the fence and she got thrown onto the ground and the horse came over on top and rolled on top of it. She was unconscious when I got there.
It was later learnt that Princess Anne had cracked a vertebra.
Anne bounced back fast and later that year went on to compete in the Olympics in Montreal, riding Goodwill, another horse bred by Her Majesty. But the Queen watched in horror as Anne fell off and suffered a serious head injury.
She fell and the Queen and Prince Philip rushed round to see her to make sure she was okay. I mean, she'd been knocked out, she'd been knocked unconscious, but amazingly she got back on her horse and finished because she was competing as part of the Olympic team.
I think the Queen would have been very proud that Princess Anne was the first member of the royal family to compete in the Olympics and subsequently was BBC Sports Personality of the Year.
The Queen's pride would have reached new heights when it became clear that her daughter's eventing talents had been passed down to her granddaughter, Zara.
Zara Tyndall, with her parents, had no option other than to be a phenomenal rider. Her father, Captain Mark Phillips, was one of the best riders of his generation, and he's also a renowned coach.
Zara has spoken about the fact that she talks to the Queen about horses all the time. That is a passion she shares with her grandmother.
In 2005, Zara competed at the European Eventing Championships on her trusty chestnut gelding, Toy Town.
And she had to go out and ride the round of her life. And the rain was coming down in stair rods.
And goes into the lead. That's a great round for Great Britain.
Nonetheless, Zara triumphed and was crowned individual European champion at just 24 years old.
And the following year, she became world champion. So she showed she's not just a one-hit wonder.
7 years later, Zara competed in the biggest sporting event of her life, the 2012 London Olympics.
So the London Olympics would have meant a lot. It's on home ground.
That was incredible to see homegrown talent, but also a member of the royal family competing here, and the British public were very excited about that.
Zara won silver, becoming the first Royal Olympic medalist ever. It was a jubilant moment for the Queen and the whole of the royal family.
Princess Anne, Princess Royal, presented it, and that would have been a proud moment, not just for Mum, but for Zara as well.
She's absolutely a top rider in her own right, but she definitely has the genes for it.
These are genes passed down not only through her grandmother, the Queen, but also by her grandfather, Prince Philip. After retiring from polo in 1971, Philip ensured his success with horses continued by creating a new competition based around another of the oldest forms of equestrianism, competitive carriage driving.
Prince Philip, who was second last weekend at the Houghton Horse Driving Trials in Scotland. Winner first time out this season at the Brighton Horse Driving Trials.
Really, before Prince Philip, carriage driving was seen as something as a historical anachronism, an oddity. And then Prince Philip really transformed it into a sport.
What precisely are the judges looking for?
In a sense, the accuracy of the driving, which it sounds relatively easy, but in fact, when you try and do it, it drives you up the wall.
Carriage driving competitions take place over 3 days, and riders are judged on dressage, speed over a 10-kilometre course, and cone driving. It doesn't come cheap. The full kit can cost around £35,000. Prince Philip got his from the Royal Mews.
The things that did find difficult were the horses. Horses were used to walking the streets of London, not treading the paths of Windsor Great Park or going through water. But Prince Philip coaxed them, usually with sugar lumps. But he developed a passion for carriage driving, so much so that he got together with a group from the FEI, the International Equestrian Federation, to write the rule book, Carriage Driving.
He basically came up with the discipline, and he really, if you'll pardon the pun, drove the success of it.
He was president of the FEI, which is the equestrian version of FIFA, and in that role he made a huge mark in developing international horse sport. The international carriage driving world has a lot to thank him for.
Despite its often hazardous nature, the popularity of the sport started to soar.
This isn't horse and cart stuff. They drive around obstacles at high speeds, screeching around the turns. It's very, very active. It's very competitive and fast-paced.
Carriage driving is a rather rough sport. Prince Philip said the best bit was when it was over and you're all in one piece.
In competitions, Philip was often cheered on from the sidelines by his wife, Her Majesty the Queen.
Lo and behold, his second tournament was the European Championships. He went on to compete in 2 more European Championships and I think 6 World Championships, and was really a very, very high-class competitor.
The Duke owed much of his driving success to his trusty fell ponies. One of his favourites, Balmoral Nevis, was bred by Her Majesty.
At Prince Philip's funeral, his 2 fell ponies, Balmoral Nevis and Knotlaw Storm, were part of the funeral procession. And something that really actually was very moving, I thought, was his little cup with the sugar lumps and his driving gloves on the top of the carriage. I just found that really, really moving, actually, that they included that in the funeral procession.
And there was perhaps no more emotive sight than the Duke of Edinburgh's driving fell ponies at his funeral, and it was such a sort of emotional sight with his driving gloves just laid there. I think that was one of the most emotive sights, perhaps, of the whole day.
This year, as the Queen celebrates her Platinum Jubilee, there will be many poignant and emotional sights.
It's an amazing achievement. This is a very historic occasion. We're never ever going to see a monarch reign for 70 years again.
But through it all, Her Majesty is being accompanied by her beloved horses.
Đi khám da liễu về, bác sĩ bảo có phải trong tim không nhỉ? Tim không nhỉ? Tim không nhỉ? Tim không nhỉ? Nhỉ 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 nhỉ. Có phải trong tim không nhỉ? Nhỉ 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 nhỉ. Có phải trong tim không nhỉ? Nhỉ 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 nhỉ. Có phải trong tim không nhỉ? Đi khám da liễu về, bác sĩ bảo có phải trong tim không nhỉ? Tim không nhỉ? Tim không nhỉ? Tim không nhỉ? Nhỉ 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 nhỉ. Có phải trong tim không nhỉ? Đi khám da liễu về, bác sĩ bảo có phải trong
In 2022, the entire nation has been honouring our great monarch's unprecedented 7-decade reign.
Big deal. 70 years on the throne. Never been done before by any other British monarch. It's an amazing achievement.
Millions of people around the globe have been watching as Britain celebrates, with scores of official events and glittering parades, featuring hundreds of horses.
This is a very historic occasion. We're never ever going to see a monarch reign for 70 years again.
And to celebrate Her Majesty's greatest of all passions in this historic year, a special commemorative 50-pence piece picturing the Queen on horseback has been made by the Royal Mint, who have been striking images of the monarch into British coins for 1100 years.
To be able to produce the Platinum Jubilee coins is quite something, because we forget that there isn't going to be another Platinum Jubilee in this country for probably 200 years. To have a monarch who has been on the throne for 70 years is quite something. So it really is a truly special moment and something that is really significant in the history of this country, but also in the history of the coinage. The Royal Mint has never done a Platinum Jubilee coin before. This is the first.
It's a wonderful thing because of all the things in her life, that must surely epitomise one of the things that gives her the greatest pleasure. It's a key part of her life.
The coin exemplifies both the pageantry of her birthday parade and also her personal commitment to horses, which is a wonderful idea.
Just 1.3 million of the 50-pence pieces will be entering circulation, making them highly covetable collector's items. But it's not the first time the Queen has been shown on horseback in Royal Mint coinage. In 1953, she was depicted sitting astride a steed on her coronation crown piece.
So what we can see here is the Queen on horseback, and with a lot of the equestrian portraits we don't know an awful lot about the name of the horse or whether it's a specific horse, but this one is said to be Winston, one of the horses that the Queen inherited from her father and was used at the first trooping of the colour by the Queen. The artist obviously couldn't wait for the Queen to sit on Winston all the time, so there was a stand-in used.
The Queen was shown back in the saddle again in 1977 to commemorate 25 years of her reign.
In 1977, for her Silver Jubilee, she is depicted once again as an equestrian portrait, pretty much as she would appear at a trooping of the colour. Now, this tradition is pretty much followed through 4 Jubilees, and we see it again in 2002, and then right through to the current year in 2022.
The practice of commemorating monarchs on horseback in coinage dates back hundreds of years, at least as far as Edward VI, who was pictured atop a warhorse in a coin dated 1551.
There's a long tradition. This really is mass art in many ways. It's a way that the public can engage with royalty on a day-to-day basis. If you're going way, way back, this is probably one of the only depictions that people would see of the monarch. So that's very important. One thing you do see with these earlier pieces is that the horses appear to be very much sort of war horses. They appear to be very big, very bulky, and you also have them very much sort of prancing as you would get with a ceremonial appearance. So you have that iconography of both the might that comes across with a war horse, but the ceremony when it's parading. So what we probably see a little bit more of today, I suppose in the past, is you get less of the war horse, the war charger, and you get more of the ceremony coming across. But one of the things that is consistent is that whole aspect of pomp and circumstance. That really comes across in the early pieces just as it does in today's coins. What you're seeing with this, as opposed to other monarchs where in earlier periods you have to put them on a horseback to show that they're a strong ruler, they've got martial might. The Queen genuinely has a love of horses. And I think that's reflected in the fact that the Royal Mint and coins that we've done to mark significant jubilees have often reflected her on horseback. If it hadn't been for the fact that the Queen was so engaged with riding and horses more generally, that probably wouldn't have been the case.
And as always, the equestrian portrait on the 2022 coin has been personally approved by Her Majesty.
So the Queen signs off every design that is made by the Royal Mint, and She does occasionally feed back. One of the few instances where we know she has fed back is in relation to 1977, where she appears on horseback. And we know that she was keen to have her leg moved a little bit, just to make it looking slightly more natural. So it's an interesting example of where the Queen is clearly engaging with coinage design and engaging with her appearance on the coinage. But it's interesting that one of the times she has fed back is when she's on horseback.
There is much we have learned about the Queen through her love of horses. They played a pivotal role in Her Majesty's formative years and have been at the centre of her greatest pleasures ever since. From racing meets and weddings, state ceremonies and pageantry, to quality time spent with family. Horses are a love she shared with her parents and her dear husband, Philip. All the Queen's horses who have served her will forever have earned a special place in the heart of our Queen.